Hi everyone again. My name is Alexa and I wanted to focus on the effects of unsustainable commercial fishing practices on schooling fish populations. Mainly, I wanted to bring attention to the history of sardine populations on the west coast of the US, as it has a similar history to the populations in Europe mentioned by Roberts in The Unnatural History of the Sea. The Monterey Bay Area has a rich fishing history that I was not aware of that at one point made it well known in the fishing industries. During the 1920s through the 1940s, Monterey became famous for its sardine fisheries located on Cannery Row and became one of the largest commercial fisheries in North America. You may recognize the name Cannery Row from John Steinbeck's novel, Cannery Row. The waters off the coast here are incredibly productive due to the upwelling of cold, nutrient-rich waters from the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, which feeds into a highly productive marine food web. The nutrients support plankton, which are then food to small schooling fish, which are then in themselves preyed upon by animals such as whales, sea lions, and seabirds. In 1908, the first major cannery, the Pacific Fish Company, opened on Ocean Avenue, which is about 2 blocks up from the coast. The sardines were canned or reduced for food and oil, with small portions used for live or dead bait. As years went on, fishing and canning technology allowed for improved methods of catching and canning higher numbers of sardines. During World War II, there was a spike in demand for canned sardines as they were a good source of protein and did not go bad due to how they were packaged and shipped. Cannery Row, as a result, expanded rapidly as the wartime production of canned sardines increased from 75,000 cases in 1915 to 1.4 million cases in 1918. Unfortunately, under high demand, sardines were essentially fished to the point of commercial extinction. The canneries, unable to recover, closed, and Cannery Row became desolate. In response, from 1967 to 1986, California issued an emergency commercial harvest moratorium, which was enforced in order to hopefully bring the sardines back to the bay. This was a much-needed acknowledgement that the sardine fishery was no longer viable. Due to these strict management policies, the Pacific sardine population began recovering in the 1980s and is under close monitoring today. However, we are again seeing another bust in the sardine population. According to a study in the journal Geophysical Research Letters, the Pacific sardine has a natural population fluctuation where collapses in the species are predicted and expected. Scientists have described a collapse in the fish population as a drop below 10% of the average peak in the fish population as estimated from the paleo record. Fishermen and fishery managers have witnessed several booms followed by busts in cycles every 1 to 2 decades lasting for a decade or more. The busts not only affect the species itself, but can have a ripple effect through an entire marine food web as prey is limited among predators such as sea lions and seabirds. Recovery time varies, and for reference, anchovy populations take about an average of 8 years to recover from a collapse, while sardines took an average of about 22 years to recover from a collapse. This natural cyclical cycle is one reason why the bust after World War II was so extreme. However, the overfishing of the sardine population by commercial fisheries along the coast just made it that much worse. Today, as of July 2019, the Pacific sardine population was still considered overfished by the National Marine Fisheries Service. The assessment indicated that the population was below the threshold necessary for commercial fishing to occur, resulting in commercial fisheries to remain closed for an additional year. Once the sardine populations are again at healthy levels, there is support for the resumption of an ecologically sustainable fishery plan to prevent exacerbating the fishery collapse in the future. And then here are my references.